Hi everyone, Simon Keeling here. Thanks for watching weatherweb.net. It's Monday, this is the 17th of September. Sites get free of charge by the adverts that you see around the screen. So by you coming back and viewing the site, by clicking on adverts that you like and seeing the adverts there, that's what generates revenue that keeps the site free of charge. So thank you for doing that. Now, interesting developments in the upper atmosphere. This is the 500 millibar mean flow running from next Monday through to Thursday, the 27th. So this is essentially next week, and it compares the ECMWF model on the left and the GFS model on the right. And it's the 500 millibar flow, and colours are on here indicating where heights are above normal, which is the red, below normal, which is the blue. And you can see how we've got these ridges and troughs, look, around the hemisphere. All these basically have been amplified by Super Typhoon Samba, which has hit North Korea, which has hit South Korea this morning, heading northwards into China over the coming days. But it's amplifying these ridges and troughs, and you can see how next week, during the period that this forecast is for, from the Monday to Thursday, we've got this trough through the British Isles and much of Western Europe on both the ECMWF and on the GFS, and that hints at mixed conditions continuing during much of next week. Now, when we get these amplified modes, what you tend to find is that they're pretty slow moving, so we find little change over periods of days and sometimes even weeks. And if you look at the CFS model, this is the forecast for this week, so this is week 1. Now, you do have to somehow twist your heads around on these, because the British Isles is here, look, you can see it upside down, the chart's centred on the North Pole. So what it's showing here is anomalies of the 500 millibar heights, and you see that they're below normal to the northeast of the country. So we've got this trough here during the coming week. Next week, what we find is that the trough is through the country, look. So this is the mixed conditions for next week, so running us from the 23rd to the 29th of September. And notice too, look, we've got the ridge out to the west, ridge out to the west, ridge out to the east. So we're in this really amplified ridge trough situation. So we're in this trough, keeping the mixed disturbed conditions going next week. Now, what happens after that? Well, this is the beginning of October, so this takes us from Sunday the 30th of September through to the 6th of October. And notice how the ridge has slipped back in, look, to the east of the British Isles, with the trough out to the west. Now, what this could do is it could, for a time, introduce more southerly winds, which would bring warmer conditions during that first week of October, because next week looks set to be pretty cool, but this first week of October could go somewhat milder on a southerly flow. Now, I think there would be some outbreaks of rain across western parts of the country, but I think to the west it should be generally drier. I better just get that phone call, hadn't I? Excuse me. That rang a bell. Okay, right, back to it. Where were we? Yep, so it looks like we will find some rain out towards the west of the country, but eastern areas tending to be drier and brighter. And then into week 4, from the 7th to the 13th of October, looking like the trough comes back in, so we could go back into more mixed cool conditions with some showers around again during this period. So I think what we can take from these forecasts is that the spell going from this coming Sunday through to, so this Sunday is, let me just check my dates here so we get them right, so through from the 23rd onwards until at least the middle of October is going to be a mixed spell. We might find that early week of October actually not being too bad, perhaps warming up, but elsewhere it looks as if it probably is rather mixed and it's rather cool. Now, we've got some cool weather coming up in the week ahead. This is the city forecast chart for London, and it's the temperature graph, look. The red is maximum temperatures in 6-hour steps, the blue is minimum temperature, and I want to draw your attention to the minimum temperatures on here, because look, if you run along the 5-degree line here, just look how cool it is. We've got cool nights ahead through this week and into the early part of the weekend, so certainly going to be something different than we've been used to. There's the chart for Birmingham, look, this is Saturday morning, and just look how cool it is, getting close to freezing on Saturday morning. And here's Manchester, same again, look, temperatures getting close to freezing, could be a frost. There's Glasgow, once again looks like it's going to be quite cool. And there's Aberdeen, look, actually getting very close to a frost for Saturday morning. So you see how cool it is going to become overnight during the coming week. So here's the pressure charts. This is from 7 o'clock this morning. We've got a west to west southwesterly flow across the country just at the moment. That's bringing some showers through today across northern and western parts of Scotland, and really for many of us it should be a generally dry afternoon, although showers to the north and the west. Overnight tonight many places become dry and clear, some showers across the northern and western coast, but for many it is going to be a dry night and a cool one too. I think we could find temperatures down to between 2 and 5 degrees in some more rural spots during tonight. A touch of ground frost I wouldn't rule out. For Tuesday, looks as if the flow goes into the northwest, so a cool day but some good spells of sunshine. Showers focused around northern and western Scotland again, 1 or 2 just for northwest England and northern Wales, a light one perhaps in the Midlands, but for many it looks like being a dry, bright and cool day. Overnight until Wednesday, well, with skies clear again, and it looks like it becomes another cool one. I think quite a widespread ground frost on Wednesday morning, temperatures 2 to 5 degrees. Always showers though for northern and western parts of Scotland. Now we get a slight change take place during the later part of Wednesday and heading in towards Thursday, because we get a front coming in. Now what this is going to do is increase cloud across Ireland, bringing rain here. It's going to bring more cloud across northern England and southern Scotland too, and I think by the morning on Thursday we could well find some rain across northern Ireland and northern parts of England, as well as southern Scotland, perhaps also northern Wales. To the south it's dry and clear again, 5 degrees as a minimum down here, but so not quite so cool, about 2 or 3s across central Scotland, but holding up in this cloud and outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Northern England. On Thursday that front will be clearing its way slowly eastwards and southwards, but it could bring quite a damp and cloudy day to some parts of Northern England, Northern Wales, the Northern Midlands, perhaps Central Ireland too. But eventually, overnight, the front should clear away. We find brighter conditions coming into the north, and then high pressure look building in. Now that high leads to clear skies overnight as we head in towards Saturday, and I think the result of this is where our major temperature drop is going to be, with temperatures down to between 1 and 5 degrees for many, and a touch of air frost perhaps for central Scotland, northern England, central Wales, parts of the Midlands too, with a high pressure in control. However, the high brings a fine day on Saturday with plenty of sunshine, some morning mist patches taking time to clear. I think overnight into Sunday we dry and clear again across more southern areas, but the wind's starting to come in from the south or southeast, so not quite so cold. And then through Sunday a front moves into western Scotland, into northern and western Ireland as low pressure moves in, bringing more unsettled conditions. But for much of England and Wales and for eastern Scotland it should be another dry day, pretty warm too, could be getting up to 20 degrees again across southern areas during the course of Sunday afternoon. And then on Monday, well, low pressure comes in, and I think this is probably about right, because it looks as if things start to become more disturbed through that early part of next week. This is what we've just been seeing, don't forget, on the CFS week 1 chart, week 2 chart here. Remember that trough that was across us? Look, and there it is, developing on the GFS. So I think this low pressure comes in, it brings some outbreaks of rain and showers, but I think eventually it just gets stuck over us through next week, and I think that's where we see this mixture of sunshine and showers, some of them quite heavy at times, and still some cool nights next week. Perhaps not quite so cold as this week, but some cool nights nonetheless, and temperatures by day probably around 16 or 17 degrees. So a cool, quite autumnal feel to the weather during the course of next week. So that's all for now. Thanks again for watching, and as I reminded you, the adverts around the screen are what keep the site free of charge. So thanks for looking at those, and keep the sun shining. Bye for now.